Hey, thank you for watching here at YouTube Live at Blooming Light. And if you happen to be watching live, the original air date is, what is this, Wednesday? I want to say, is it Wednesday? July the 10th, 2025. If you're logging in at a later time and date, no worries. But anyway, if you're not familiar with who I am, I invite you to look at the homepage. I invite you to check out all of the many videos that I have. It's a combination of my content as well as other content creators, just a number of stuff. Okay, so if you're looking for something traditional and something, slim, trimlined, I'm not the content creator for you. You're gonna find all kinds of stuff ranging from Reiki, light language, affirmations, to tarot readings, to the spoken word poetry, uh, singing, dancing, story time, me ranting. You're going to see it all. And you know what? I don't regret it, not even the least bit, because it's revealing the layers of my humanity. And for someone like me, I have respect for that. I know there are people who, would differ on feeling like you should have all of your emotions together before you become a content creator. And I don't agree with that, because that's not what our lives look like. Okay, especially if you're someone that was a targeted individual and that have lived through years and most of your life of long exposure to narcissistic abuse and trauma. Okay, it's nothing streamlined and cookie cutted and black and white. It's not a PowerPoint presentation. The way that you process and deal, right? Any of us can sit down in a classroom or in front of a computer, and theory, you get taught theory and you can sit there and map out something, but that's easy to do in theory because life is not happening. You're given scenarios and you're there not living the scenario. And that's something that they never think about in these educational programs, though. Because it's like, yeah, you're given a scenario, but you're not living the scenario, which that's where the added element and variable is, the actual experience of it. Okay, so I have respect for, my unfolding and all those layers to me in the journey, including the emotions and all of that, because that's what's real. For anybody who really has been targeted versus it's trending and everybody's claiming it. It's almost the same thing as, everybody's claiming to be an empath. It's trending. And I am an empath, and not knowing what that's saying. I'm sensitive. You have psychopaths that's sensitive. That's why they're a psychopath or a sociopath. They're sensitive. You're right. Their ego is. But empathy, this is not what the live is about, but empathy, first we need to look into the definition of it and then apply it. And that also means it's not just pertaining to you. Your empathy and applied empathy with compassion, which is to me what applied empathy is. But empathy is actually you can take on, you feel, okay, you don't just know it intellectually and with your mind and your thoughts, okay? You feel it, and then if you're truly empathic, a lot of times you are moved into compassion, and sometimes that's exploited by opportunists, okay? Anywho, that's not what this is about. This is me just kind of saying, oh, okay, yeah, I respect my journey, and that the unfoldment includes the ups and downs of it, the emotions, and there are people who would, argue that you shouldn't maybe share all of that, but I don't know if I agree, because when you're saying you're someone who wants to be of a service because you want to be of a service, it should include the truth. And the truth involves how that unfolded for you. If you were truly somebody that have been targeted and have been exposed, to long-term abuse and trauma, okay? Now, to getting to the video, I think the title says living space. Then it says corruption's vocal point, okay? So with this live, I do want to talk about, how that is really the focal point of all of this. It's the foundation. Living space, whether that is, if, you live alone, you live with your children, whatever the case, it's the living space that's the vocal point. It's the base, it's the foundation. And to me, it's self-explanatory as to why. But I want to talk about it and lay it out so a lot of people can maybe even see why there's a lot of targeted individuals who are displaced, okay, who are homeless, who are, struggling in that area or have to be creative in that area, okay? And even still with that creativity, it's still the target because first and foremost, they're tracking you. So wherever you're spending the majority of your time, whether or not that is technically your living space, it is something that they'll be targeting. If any of you are old schoolers, and if you're like myself and you went to college, traditional college, maybe back in the day or whatever, in those days, I don't know if they're still teaching it because I'm actually referring to like the late 90s and the early 2000s. But back then, when you went to traditional college, they taught about Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And I invite you all to Google that. I probably should have put up a pyramid of that here so that you all could see it. Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And in that hierarchy of needs, there's a triangle, and it's kind of colorful. It reminds you of like it reminds you of a food chart that you learn about. But anyway, at the bottom, it says safety and security and basic needs. And I think the color of it is red at the bottom, okay? And based on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, in order to self-actualize, that's kind of the healthy, proper flow. It's kind of hard to build if that first block is disturbed. If that first block is compromised, it is going to create issues in all of the other blocks as you're moving forward because it's going to be the motivation and the driving force. So to me, this is why it's self-explanatory why corruption, the corrupt enterprises, abusers, narcissists, psychopaths, sociopaths, why that's the vocal point. If they can destabilize you, then they can prevent or delay your self-actualization. They can keep you in a state of fight, flight, and freeze, which is the hindrance to your creativity, which is the hindrance to your wholeness. Think about it. When we get sick, right, depending on what kind of sickness it is, depending on all that's surrounding it, in some cases, you are in need of, have to go to a hospital and you need to be put in a room that is conducive for them to administer, right? In order for you to be able to heal, you can't go work construction, be exposed to other further contaminants and so forth with certain ailments and expect expect there to be a smooth, consistent, even keeled, streamlined process of recovery. So if you want to look at that from a energetic, mental, spiritual space, it's the same thing. The foundation, because that's where it takes place. So destabilize via many methods. If they can't destabilize the target in the truest sense that they really desire to, which they aim to do continually, okay? If they can't destabilize the target by actual homelessness to such an extent where like you are living under the freeway or, you know, shaking a tin can somewhere, which is, that's the dream for these people, okay? That's the dream. Because, and I'm gonna get into why that's the dream, but if they can't do that, then disturb the space. Whatever space they know that you're gonna have to frequent or be regularly, whether you're spending 2 or 3 nights a week there, 4 nights a week there, no matter what, wherever they know that you have to spend a majority of your time. It can be the nicest space in the world in terms of aesthetics, in terms of, you know, if it, you know, the quality of it, you know, the land, the layout, the property, the amenities. It can be all of those things. But since their focal point is, according to Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the first brick in the pyramid, safety and security, then they want to make you feel unsafe and insecure. And the way they make you feel unsafe and insecure is in passive aggressive ways. And I'm going to talk about those passive aggressive ways. The reason why it has to be that, because it can't just be utterly, if it's too obvious, then it's too clear and easy for the target to call the authorities and provide this and that. It's too simple. So it has to be something. It's called coercion or covert. Okay. So they attempt to then make the target feel unsafe and insecure by way of, we already seen on my platform on TikTok, as well as other content creators that are talking about this, by way of the noisemakers. So if you're in an apartment complex, because again, most targeted individuals don't have their own homes because people made sure that they couldn't. Okay? They made sure of it. They made sure to wreck shot the fuck. Okay? They made sure of that because it's harder if somebody has their own property. It's harder to do. They still do it by way of like the neighbors, but it's harder because you're not in a shared, you know, space. So if the targeted individuals are in apartment complexes, duplexes, or roommates, or whatever the case may be, then they will have whoever's closest, if there's like, you know, levels, they'll have people be the noisemakers. So if you have somebody that live above you, it's gonna be a nonstop thumping and bumping, just like a nagging itch. Okay? And that's psychological warfare, even if it's not extreme. Now, in some cases, they will be doing an extreme, but even if it's not extreme, they will have them do incessant, nonstop, and because nobody naturally lives that way. And this is how you're gonna know. There's nobody, okay? And I mean nobody, unless they got a herd of animals, fucking, you know what I'm saying? Nobody lives like that. So they're going to have those individuals be constant thumping, 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 all times of the day, all hours of the night, thumping. And that's just to tire you out. That's to irritate you. That's to get you sleep deprived. That's to distract your attention from what you're trying to do. Because remember, your foundation is supposed to be your safe haven for you to be able to self-actualize and or heal. So that constant thumping. I want y'all to listen to this. Now, what you hear sounds harmless, right? What you hear doesn't sound like a big deal, right? Then you think you got some sense of relief, that pause, then it's... So now that you heard that example, extend that over a 24-hour period and extend that times 7 and extend that times another 7 and extend that past times another 7, all different times of the day and night. What does that create and what does that become then? Something as simple and as basic and as seemingly harmless. And the reason why that is one of their favorite tools to use, because that's something that could be swept under the guise of, well, you know, it's going to be natural. Anytime you live somewhere and there's someone above you, there's going to be a level of noise. I mean, that's a natural thing. It's plausible. It's going to be swept under the guise of, oh, that, you know, it's somebody's little toddlers or somebody's little kids. And so these are plausible things that they exploit for that reason. This is what makes it covert. Okay? So that's one of the ways they're trying to disrupt the stability or the safety, the sense of safety and security and tranquility and all of those things that everyone should be able to create in a living space, even if it's a fucking shoebox. Okay? Even if it's a fucking shoebox. And trust me, I've lived in some crazy and interesting, you know, spaces and places and on my own. And I can tell you this, this is how I figured out that you can create a tranquil space, no matter the size of it and no matter, you know. So now the next thing that they will do in these apartment complexes is the unnecessary reviews in terms of, depending on if it's connected to any housing authority program that your people may be in. So what they will do is create unnecessary excessive reasons to have to enter your unit, okay, to create uncomfortableness, to be nosy, to take stuff, touch stuff, okay? Violating your privacy, because that's something that they do not want targeted individuals to have. It's like, I've tested this theory, you all. It's like they get nervous when you're off of the grid. They get nervous when you're not in a spot that they can see you and have access to you. This is why they come knocking on doors claiming that someone wants to utilize, the body shaper. And, because again, they don't want you having any enjoyment of things that you do for yourself, any privacy. And this is how they're attacking the sense of safety and security. This is their passive aggressive approach that can be denied because of the plausibility. I can go work out at the gym too. The gym, the exercise room is not just for them. You know what I'm saying? Like, and is it not plausible what they just said? Is it not plausible? Because look, technically that is 100% the truth. If it's in a complex, then every single resident and their visitors or whoever can, if the hours are open, they can go in there and do that at any time. So that is truth. You see that? It's 100% truth of what they're saying. The plausibility, and that's also a part of the psychological attack and crazy making to make the target look like someone who is hypersensitive, hypervigilant, and overly paranoid. So then they will do things like, this other things is whatever you do there. If you go to the fitness center, if you go to the pool, if you decide to take a walk, to the dog park, if you decide to, then it's almost going to be synchronized that all of a sudden there are certain individuals that's almost like on cue that's going to suddenly need to walk their dog, suddenly need to get some fresh air themselves as well, suddenly need to go sitting by the pool, suddenly need to go work out, and suddenly just want to come and sit in their car even though they ain't going nowhere, and they just want to come sit in their car suddenly and then sit there looking at you. And you see what I'm saying? This is another tactic of tearing away at the target's sense of safety and security, the living space. Then they're going to orchestrate conflicts. They're going to orchestrate conflicts or situations with tenants, other residents. So you'll encounter somebody being extremely rude to you or your children. So that's to make you feel unsafe, because if you got somebody that's being rude to them or you, then that's to make you uncomfortable. So then they want you to be close proximity to those that you don't feel comfortable around, because they have already made it clear by way of their behavior and their conduct that they ain't rocking with you, that they on some nigga bitch shit. That's another tactic. This will be orchestrated. They start to pay actors within these said complexes and their friends and family members to annoy you in these passive aggressive and covert styles, so that they can technically say, I didn't do nothing to you. I didn't do nothing to you as far as the eye can see. I didn't do nothing to you. And then they'll have people to come in to befriend you. Depending on what stage of your process that you're on, then they assign handlers to come in and be your friend, or to seem like they're nice to you so that you're comfortable, so that you'll open up, so that maybe you'll trust them, so that they can use them to keep tabs of you, to put stuff in your space, to give you something contaminated that they put some kind of spell on or some kind of curse on. Okay, so they will use, that will be a plot if you're still open to it. They will use that and see if you bite, and, you know, whether that's a lover or, you know, or a friend. Okay. And if that doesn't work, if you're past that, like I said, then they're going to just use the agitators and the antagonist in the complex. To make issues, but make it seem like they're not. Then they'll, you know, have people driving around spilling out real, like, rude things to you. People you don't even fucking know. That you don't even know. We're still talking about how they're attacking your sense of safety and security and your living space. People that you don't even know. Once again, that is to affect your sense, you and your children's sense of being safe in the world. If you have nothing but hostility and aggression, then that then creates a sense of, I'm not safe here. I'm not secure here. I'm in a hostile and aggressive environment, which then affects the person's health and well-being. It then affects the person's mind and emotional space. It then affects all other things, according to Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If they can create, if they can put you in a rural area, that's another, like, golden ticket for them, because if they can get you cornered into a rural area where there is nothing, no busing system, no Uber, you like essentially one grocery store, you know, where there's just like nothing, like almost virtually nothing. With limited access to anything, then this is really their bread and butter, because they can do a lot to you there and they can get away with a lot of it there. Because when you are isolated in these rural areas, most of the leadership and most of the authority and the government in those locations all know each other. They're all interconnected, and oftentimes there's a lot of corruption. So they can do a lot and cover up a lot. Okay, so you don't feel safe and secure. Your ability to thrive is compromised in those situations, because it's hard in any living space to start your life over from scratch and to be able to rebuild. But it's definitely something that's almost virtually impossible if you're starting your life from scratch, you're in a rural area where there's absolutely nothing, and then you are simultaneously being targeted by people who actually want you dead, but then they're going to make it seem like you're somebody that just can't seem to get it together. So they're going to really exploit if you find yourself in a rural area with knowing no one, with no resources, and so forth. They're going to exploit the hell out of that. That's where you have situations where they will be poisoning you, literally, putting things in your water, putting things in your food, putting things, contaminants in the unit, and things of that nature. Now, moving past that, another thing that they do to affect the sense of, living space and safety and security is creating unnecessary bills, unfair fines, tampering with mail, because you got to remember, when you're dealing with this corruption, then they also have access to your mail. So they'll be tampering with the mail, they'll be tampering with process. So, because all of this is connected to living space and your foundation. So things that seem to be standard and normal for the most, you're trying to file your tax return. That turns into an obstacle course. You start to notice that everything is an obstacle course, and that's not natural. This is where you start to understand that, nah, this is something else. Because everything ain't a fucking obstacle course. It doesn't matter about that's the process. That's their manipulation head fuck. But, everything ain't catastrophic and complicated. It's intentional. Somebody's going to be lazy and sit on their ass and dilly-dally so that hopefully so that you won't be able to do something in a timely manner that you need to do it or that you've prepared to do it. They're sitting wait on it, on their ass talking about they're waiting for somebody to contact them. In business, that you don't do that, not when you want money. And I can guarantee you that in real estate, when it's to do with getting money, and these are, they're really wanting this client, I can guarantee you they're not sitting anywhere and waiting on nothing. They're very diligent about making the necessary phone calls, how often they need to make it in order to seal the deal. So they'll say stuff like, well, it's the process and whoop, and then they'll pretend to not be aware of a holiday while simultaneously telling you and others that, oh, this will be ready, by then, or your prospective move-in date is then, because in moving, what do everybody have to do? You have to contact people. And everybody's got a schedule. You have to contact movers. You have to contact all these various things for it to get set up and scheduled properly and in sync. And for those, if you're getting movers, people who are going to be available and willing to assist you. And it's not something standardly that people are going to be wanting to do at the last minute because we got some lazy good for nothing, that's intentionally dragging their ass. Those are the ways that they attempt to affect your safety and security and stability and your living space. So delays, unjustified, unnatural, and unnecessary delays. To make you have to stress out, to make you have to figure out, because they already know what they're doing. To keep you destabilized. So they'll get sudden amnesia when it's time for you to go into another location, you or your children. They'll get amnesia suddenly. Suddenly, they don't remember. the terms and conditions that you had already set initially with them. Suddenly, they're not familiar with, you know, the program that they've been working for 30 years. Suddenly, now that it's time to get away from them and to move on to something better, when it's time for them to not be able to exploit you and get money off of you and your children, when that time is up, then they attempt to delay your process. They'll fill out paperwork saying, oh, somebody other than that's on the lease live in the unit. And they know full well of the program, and so it's not something that they would have been tolerating, because they know full well about the program and that that's something that's technically not supposed to be allowed. So that is an attempt to sabotage, to make you have to go back and say, excuse me, why did you say that? Why did you do that? You know what we discussed. You know what I explained to you in layman's terms. So why would you fill that out on a paper? Don't tell me you don't know the program. Don't tell me that you don't know that that is considered a violation, because you've been working the program for 30 years. That's intentional. Then they will go back and forth and have conversations. See, this is the stuff that I'm talking about, stuff that is not in their jurisdiction to be doing. They will go on to tell these new prospective landlords and managers stuff that they have no business. So for an example, as you or your people reside in a certain unit that they feel privy to have to be able to walk in and around and see what the hell you have, then if they're discovering that you're spiritual or you're a podcaster or, you know, all of those things, and they see that kind of stuff, and they then go to share their views and opinions about what that is, claiming that you are toxic, claiming that you a devil worshiper, claiming that you're a druggie. Let me just pause and say this here. Get educated, people, okay? Because there's things that's called B12 shots that you can get from different places that's licensed to do so. You can go there and they can administer it for you, or you can buy the packs if you want to administer it for yourself on a weekly basis. And that's really good for your health, your metabolism, your nervous system, and energy, if you can, you know, afford it. And so you may have a collection, because you have to get rid of the needles. You can't just throw them in the trash. Otherwise, you would have just thrown them in the trash. But they're hazardous. People do it, but you shouldn't. Okay, because you got people moving it. You just shouldn't. Okay, so you all may have that, and some of the nosies, these managers, these landlords, could have been like, they have hypodermic needles and stuff. I think they're on drugs. I think they're a prostitute. And in most cases, they know full well that you're not. But it's something that they want to use to cause, because how are they trying to affect your health and well-being and stability? They're trying to cause you to look like you're something that you're not to people by using something that they are misrepresenting. Out of their ignorance. So then if that's spreading, let's say, especially in a rural area or small town, but anywhere, if If that's spreading, then how likely is it that you're going to get a job in a small town where there's only a good 5 jobs, bitch? What's the likelihood that you're going to be able to establish any real friendships? Because in those cases and places, the small towns, everybody knowing everybody, okay? And everybody gossip like they're still in one big high school yard past 50 years old. The likelihood is slim because people, the seed has been sown. So people are going to start thinking you're some kind of prostitute drug addict. Again, we're talking about the passive ways that they're trying to affect the living space or your sense of safety and security. These are covert, behind the scene actions that limits and restricts the targeted individual. Now, let's add, now we spoke about a lot of these physical acts that they can do. The noise makers, the people, the synchronized, organized pop-ups and following you around. And, the antagonists, people, being rude to you or your children unnecessarily. Cars swerving around you all the time to elicit fear. So it's going to be a lot of crying, screaming babies if they know that you have a sensitive child. So they try to synchronize, where there's a lot of noise making or crying babies or shouting because they know it's reminding or triggering trauma. Motorcycles and people revving up, just driving fast and reckless around you or your children. What is that supposed to be doing? And again, all of these things seem plausible because they naturally happen in life. These things do naturally happen. But when you start to pattern recognize and you see the consistency, then you realize that it's unnatural the way it's happening for you. So now moving past the attempts to, the physical stuff. If they know about the restaurants, if it's a small town, they know the restaurant owner, the cook, or people who work there, then they will go there and pay these people to put shit in your food. If you're door dashing, because again, if you're in a rural area and you don't have any transportation and they know that you're going to end up relying on certain systems, then they're going to exploit that. To tamper with your stuff. Now, moving past that, getting into the more spiritual and esoteric, metaphysical stuff. So, topple that with, they're going to start using voodoo practitioners. And listen, I am not anti-magic. I practice magic. I am not anti-spell work. I'm not even anti-baneful work. I'm anti-baneful work based on the ego, on innocent life, and out of greed, envy. I'm anti that. And I think baneful work should be, in my humble opinion, should be used not out of fear, like we shouldn't be afraid, but just with a sense of responsibility as a person and as a practitioner. Should be used with some kind of safety features. That's my opinion. Because in case of error, if you're doing something to somebody who doesn't deserve it, or you're doing something on a disabled person and some raggedy snagger-tooth bitch came in your office giving you a name and a birth date of someone, and you just look at the name and the birth date and then go, oh, that's an adult. That's somebody that's an adult. And you don't consider, is this a sociopath that's coming to you, having you to do some baneful work on a disabled person that's been disabled since their birth? To get some kind of vengeance on somebody, or to even siphon and destiny swap with their life because they a sorry bitch and a sorry nigga. Nobody thinks about that stuff. But so what they will start to do is exploit those things. Okay, and they will have people to, if you're dealing with special needs situations, they'll have people to try to befriend them, to try to come up to them when you're not around. But beyond that, they will start doing spell work. They'll first be doing it anyway. They've been doing this stuff. But to bring it in closer, as we're talking about the living space, to bring it in closer, they will, huh? Hello? Oh, that's Darrell. They will then have people in that complex doing root work on you. So they'll have people, and the closer the better. So if they can have it to be someone above you, someone below you, someone next door, the closer the better. They will then start adding that. So knowing like your schedule and about the time that maybe you or your children will fall asleep, then they will have these people doing their conjuring, doing their root work while they're on the same grid as you, meaning the physical land, the same grid. This is a part of why they're always trying to figure out your movement so that they can know, are they in there? Okay, so we can do some spell work. We can, do some sending us some energy. We can do some workings. And when you don't know, and when it's not revealed to you, you kind of just feel like maybe you're getting sick. Maybe you just got the itchies and the heebie-jeebies. If you start feeling things moving around your head and in your brain, that's somebody doing spell work. That's somebody psychically attacking you and trying to siphon you and trying to either bind you, trying to affect your mind in some kind of way. Sending an entity, because these people do send entities to the targeted individuals. They send these entities to their living space to torture them in that way. And I watched my son go through hell. And me too. Not knowing, like, what is this? It's unnatural. But on the surface, it makes it look like you're just someone with mental issues. On the surface, it just makes it seem like you're somebody who, again, you just have mental issues. You may have a weak immune system. No, you don't have a weak immune system. You've had people cursing your immune system and sending entities to affect your immune system. And on top of that, actually trying to poison you. And on top of that, trying to affect your stability and your living space environment. That's what it is. So they'll start to, have that been done around the clock. Then they'll start having people just sit in vehicles near you. And if Listen, if some of these complexes, not all complexes are gated communities, and even if they were, it wouldn't matter, because if they live there themselves, and or if they know someone, it wouldn't really matter. But the whole point is that they, they'll then start to have people, walking past your spot constantly, throwing their little special dust and chanting their chants and incants and, throwing shit and whoop and yeah. Okay, they'll do that. But again, it's when you're dealing with this metaphysical stuff, it's to still make you look like you're just a mentally ill, kind of crazy, kind of like, that's what it's designed to do. Okay? Because look, if you're trying to relax in a living space so that you can either meditate, so that you can create, do your business, work, whatever this is, but you have people coming in with all those other factors we already discussed, you have people then playing in your energy, sending entities, courting, trying to drain. And then what do? You have to get up. Before you know what it is, you just kind of lay down and go to sleep, and you hope to sleep it off because you don't know what the fuck it is. But when you start to realize what it is, then you have to constantly address that in some way so that you can be clear and so that you can be light and do the things that you need to do. So it's still a tactic to keep you in this energy of constantly needing to combat what they're doing. And if you're constantly needing to combat what they're doing, then you can't be healing and creating and enjoying your life, which is their goal, which is the, okay, they'll do that. And back to, let me see. Okay, they'll do the spell work. They'll try to put poison on you. They'll try to get you to be friends with people. Okay, so now back to the natural stuff. So if you ever eventually stabilize, see, this is the part where this starts to burn them up. It starts to piss them off. If ever you are able to bring yourself out of all of their shit, all of their shenanigans, all of the magic they've thrown, all of the obstacles and tornadoes, all of the humiliation rituals, all of the theft, all of the mockery, all of the setbacks. If you're ever able to get through that, this pisses them off. So you find a job creatively and you stabilize. You get into a better living space and you start being able to take care of yourself. So in other words, get your health and your well-being in check. And that's not really making them happy because that's a part of your fucking defense. Okay? So what they will then do is infiltrate your workspaces. They will attack hard the finances. They will start doing a lot of root work on cursing your income or your finances. But beyond the root work, they will actually infiltrate that workspace. And they will start specifically trying to access your energy. Once again, access your energy through these places. In some cases, this is why they want you on these phones and in certain positions, because that's one of the surefire, easier ways that they can get in your energy without you knowing that they're getting in your energy. So it becomes this passive siphoning of your light. And they then start to, do their root work on you, but then they also infiltrate to start spreading lies and rumors, antagonizing you, prompting, testing you, pushing you to the deep end. Because they know that, okay, well, they're on this healing journey, and they're overcoming, passivity, and they're overcoming being silenced. And so we can definitely provoke them into standing up for themselves. And then we'll use that to say that they were inappropriate, so that we can create some kind of paper trail, so that we can say that they are mentally disturbed or possibly mentally disturbed, but this was all orchestrated. So they will do that to either get you to leave a workspace or to get fired. But some of you, you had your teams working with you creatively with some of that, so that you still win. Okay, some of you broke some kind of curse pertaining to this unemployment, or just giving up and being fickle and quitting things, and because it's hard or it's challenging. You was creatively guided, like, no, do everything in your power to run its course, the job, fight for it, be the best at it you can possibly be. Be willing to talk with leadership, be willing to talk with management, be willing to see if there's any move around for you, if something is no longer working for you, before don't just leave. Talk, see if they value you as an employee, if you've been there long enough. See if they will be willing to allow you to, to go up and to get into a position where you're not just sitting on the phone. And when it's discovered that you are being sabotaged there, some of you, your team is going to help you creatively get through that. Because again, these are injustices trying to affect your success, trying to affect your stability and your ability to move up and in the world and do all of those things, to take that from you. Because if they can affect that, then they feel like you have, again, they can put you in the position of an energy of lack and having limited resources of what you can do to help yourself and your children. So that you're constantly brokenhearted. They're trying to break your spirit. They're trying to make you hopeless, on top of have you compromised, have your energy, your body, your soul, your everything compromised, so that they can gain control over you, so that they can hopefully do away with you and then just take what's yours and your children's. For this insurance money, for the inheritances, for energy, because it's for different things. As some people they want the energy, and they harvest people. Some of them are psychopathic, and they want to be you. They want to be you. They want to be your replacement you. And a part of that is getting rid of you. This is why they affect the living space, because the living space is where the targets are going to be at the most. They affect all these other areas, but they concentrate heavily on the living space, on the fourth house. Or I'm sorry, the first and the fourth, maybe, in astrology. I'm not an astrologer, but so that's why they have to attack the reputation, because that's going to help in terms of passively limiting any opportunities. This is also why they try to set you up for legal issues. They try to provoke you into breaking the law. You heard it correctly. They try to provoke you into breaking laws so that they can gain some kind of control over you or your children in some way, shape, form, or fashion. Your money, your resources, your life, your space. And when all of that's not working, they'll try to manufacture it and lie. I had a situation, I think I told you guys about. I ain't stealing shit. I ain't stole since I was young, or a young adult, or earlier in my adulthood. And it was definitely nothing like a store, stuff like that. It was like personal, from family. Stole tater chips, stole, you know what I'm saying? Like stuff like that. I ain't stole from a store since I was maybe 16 or 17 years old. But they will try to set it up, like that, or make it seem like that's what you're about. I had a situation happen a few months ago at one of my son's favorite stores, and that was by design. I am no fool. I know exactly what that was. Because I know damn well sure ain't nobody stole shit. First and foremost, it ain't that deep. And second of all, I had money. See, that's why I was laughing too, because I'm like, nigga, I got money, nigga. What you mean? I got money to pay for whatever the fuck I want to pay for up in this bitch. This was back in February, March, maybe April at the latest. Okay. And my son likes to walk around in this one store that's in the mall, Second and Charles. That's one of his favorite stores. And the powers that be and the lowlifes know that. And there's employees that they're connected with there. And they saw me, and the Mexican manager lady came out and was like, I'm gonna need you to leave the store because we have you on camera lying. She's a lying whore. She's a lying whore. Okay. She wouldn't let me see it because I asked too. I was like, you got me on camera, you say. I want to see the video. To me, it seemed like they would have pulled it out with a quickness with the security. See, we got you on camera right here. Could you please leave my store? Nah, they didn't do that. They didn't do that. They were just like, well, we can call the police. I'm like, I didn't steal anything. We saw you. It was the same something, whatever. And it even could have been, see, this is another thing. Even if they could have saw me putting my keys in my purse. You see what I'm kind of trying to say? My keys, my water bottle, or something like that. And if they would have zoomed in, if even they got me on camera, then they would have known that. But it was by design, because one of their employees could have possibly told them, we saw them in here and we saw them still, stealing. No, they didn't. It was a lying whore connected to possibly my ex, okay? And or their friends and family, or one of these ex-landlords of my sons. Or somebody from Beaumont Housing Authority, knowing somebody from there, you know? People who have essentially have a problem with me that are a part of this organized, corrupt community harassment. And I said it, I said, no, okay. I cursed her too. I cursed her in a store. I sure did. And I'm gonna make that stick. It's gonna be under budget, barely making it, and eventually bankrupt, and they're gonna have to close. I sure did. Because you don't play with me. Because I'm no thief. I don't need to steal your shit. They got a bunch of teeny boppers walking through that motherfucker, a bunch of fucking emo motherfuckers, goth motherfuckers. Running through that place every day, stealing from they dumb ass. every day. That was by design. And once again, it's to disrupt all of the things that you or your children find solace or pleasure in. It's to create a feeling of agony or misery or, stagnation. Affecting the sense of safety and security. It's not even safe to have a good time. It's not, you see that? It's not safe to have a good time. It's not safe to relax and have fun because you have weirdos. It's not safe. You have somebody constantly plotting you. It's not safe to take your child to a restaurant because chances are some retard is being paid it's not safe to go walk at the park because chances are you're going to have some lizard motherfucker come out the woods, the back, out the back while you just trying to get you some laps on. Like, it's weird. Because they want you in a negative mind space, because most of targeted individuals are naturally, high frequency by nature, but they're also naturally happy-go-lucky. And I think I reposted someone's video where they're like, people have a problem with that. Naturally happy-go-lucky, and maybe even have a knack for making lemonade out of lemons. And that bugs people. Because I'm going to tell you, as me and my son dealt with our health and our well-being being plummeted in Texas, people poisoning us, doing spell work on top of the restrictions and no public bus and transportation limitations and essentially just nothing. And, we didn't have nothing. And I call it the infamous towel wrapped around my head. I still do that, even though I don't have to. I still do that if I don't feel like doing my hair. That's my version of I'm going outside and I don't want to wear a bonnet, I'll just put a towel around my head. Because some people wear their bonnets. They wear their bonnets, they wear their wave caps or stocking caps, scarves. Okay? So, but, you know, when we were in that kind of energy and space and kind of didn't have anything and all of that, the attacks were still there, but they were there in a different form, because there was a sense, these people then had a sense and feel of control over the situation, and they felt like they were successful, and so it was comic relief. It was what they were feeding off of, so that they can feel like not losers, so that they can feel better than, superior to. So as long as it stayed there, then the attacks were kind of restricted and limited and minimized. But the moment that changed, when the plans did not go according to plan, because they all keep coming in with their plots, when it ends up crashing and burning in all of their faces, then they come in with more and more shit. And that's what they did. They fought me tooth and nail to drag out my son being able to get out of Silsbee. Delta Manor, Abbey Court, overcharged my son 2 times for applications when he initially attempted to get in, when we thought his lease was up, because we were tricked. They did some skinky, shiesty shit. We were tricked. And then when I attempted to buy out an early term, they refused it and was trying to force a condition that I was not ready to proceed with. They lied and said that if his doctor said that this would be necessary and good for him, then they could approve the relocation. I provided the information for all of that, and then was still told that it was denied after I did what they asked, and it was denied on the premise of there is Southeast Texas transportation that can get him to his doctor's appointments. And that's not what was communicated in the first place. That's not. But again, these are all the things they start to do. And when those things even fail, when the collective overcomes that and say, okay, that was unjust, that was overcharged, you know, 1 Delta Manor, 1 Abbey Court, charging an affordable unit applicant the regular amount for these applications, because that's what they did the first time with Delta Manor and then Abbey Court. I discovered this the second time with Delta, which was a sidewinder. It was a reason that I wanted that for him to begin with. There was always a reason, multiple reasons, that it was not just because, oh, it was multiple reasons for it. It was this location and everything that it's close to and easy proximity, as well as the little old 2 people that I know. That's not even 10 minutes away. They're not in an apartment, and they're not 10 minutes, they're about 10 minutes away, or less. So I'm always thinking ahead. Everything I was doing for my son, it was always, okay, how can I make it better? How can I make it better? How can I make it better for him, for me, so that I can give myself space to do some things that I need to do as well, and have easy access to do what I need to do for him until we can get all of these things ironed out. The second time around with Delta Manor is where I discover the actual price that an affordable unit is supposed to be being charged for an application. Delta Manor and Abbey Court first time around both charged $119, if I'm not mistaken, each. Non-refundable. The second time around with Delta Manor, he was charged $45 for his application. These are the things, all of these little things are the things that they do. They'll overcharge you for a late fee. And a late fee that was occurred due to them playing a game with changing the app to where you go in to pay the rent, or changing the access of it in some way, and then reaching out to try to get it resolved when it's time, but then it kicks over into the third before they respond because it was on a weekend. And then so now technically they can charge you an $85 late fee. And brag about how they're going to squeeze all the money out of the targeted individual that they can, even if it's by theft, by accessing things that they have no business accessing. Once again, these are all things meant to rob the targeted population from being able to do the things they need to do, to delay processes, to create roadblocks, to keep them destabilized and in their controlled Alcatraz environment. So many things that they do to affect the stability and the sense of safety and security for the targeted individual. Okay? They don't want you to have work. If you get work, then they become bothered. When you start being able to take care of yourself, they become bothered. And so they begin to continue to amp it up, amp it up, amp it up, and attempt to take it from you. Because for whatever reason, whoever all these people are, they have deemed that the targeted individual and or their children shouldn't be here. That they deserve whatever the targeted individual and their children have, including their energy, including what's divinely theirs. They want the collective to have to constantly move because moving is said to be one of the most traumatic kinds of experiences that you can have. I'm shocked to find that out, but it's true. So they want the collective to have to, you know, feel like they kind of constantly give up stuff because they keep basically getting swarmed by roaches. They also start to infest, you know, the collective spaces and places and shit like that because they're tampering. Whether that's by spell work or by actual physical work where they're having people put shit in filters, vents. So that something's not sanitary, so that they can then go and say, oh, you know, it was infested. You know, they were not, you see that? Sending entities. Another thing that starts to happen is some of these people do start to get karmic retribution handed out to them because of all of the dirty deeds they're doing to the innocent population. And these people get upset and then take it out on them. So if they were doing death magic on you and your children, some of their people start to die. If they were doing chaos and conflict, betrayal, poverty, sickness, whatever it is they were doing, if they were gossiping, sabotaging, then they then start to experience something like that within their own family structure. And then they want to blame the collective and go, they put the root on me. They killed my parent. They did this. No, they didn't. These people did it to themselves when they tried to compromise the life, the health, and the well-being of these targeted populations. They did it to themselves when they contacted the root worker in Louisiana, when they contacted the root worker in the Bahamas, when they contacted the root worker in Texas, when they brought it on themselves. When they themselves start practicing the roots because they saw it on TikTok and how to do a cursed bitch. When the Masons and these cults, they brought this on themselves, practicing necromancy and graveyard shit. They brought this shit on themselves. What they did to my son. What they do and what they did to me and what they do. They're bringing it on themselves. The foolishness of these people practicing all this stuff, and then when strange stuff started to happen to them, then it's somebody else's fault. It's somebody doing something to them. They done stalked people, they done stole from people, they done attempted to poison people, they done did spells on people. But when something happens to them and theirs, it's somebody else's fault. They come for your happiness and your joy. Anything that you find delight in, they want it. The targeted individuals have learned how to live with minimum means, have learned how to live a simple life, have learned, you know what I'm saying, continually how to make lemonade in the simple things in life, in their creativity, in the arts. And they don't even want the collective to have that. They don't want the collective to have a traditional job. They don't want the collective to have a creative business. Because essentially they don't want the collective to exist. They don't want the collective to enjoy animal. They don't want the collective to enjoy their children. They don't want the collective to enjoy and have nothing. Because for whatever reason, this threatens them. And for whatever reason, some of these people got vengeance on the mind. And now I'm going to my last point. Some of the targeted populations become social media content creators, and they gain a place for themselves. These people are their main cyber stalkers. So they begin to get issue because they're hearing the truth about them on some of these creators' platforms. And it becomes the vengeance of, I don't like what you're saying, and I don't like what you teach, and I don't like, yeah, because it struck a nerve, it's hitting home. So they then seek to stop them from being able to do a business for themselves. I heard a young man on TikTok talk about that. He's like, what do you people want? They make sure to try to restrict you in the traditional, American standardized ways of careers and businesses and stuff like that. They make sure to make that a fucking a headache. And then when you are able to create and do things on your own, they want to try to stop that too. And in some cases, these people want to go try to start doing that and take it from themselves. That's the point. They wasn't thinking about doing nothing until you. All of a sudden, they flipping cards now. I'm a better tarot reader. I can do it better. All of a sudden, they want to, yeah. Now they want to do videos with the exercise and then working out, bitch. Your whole ass wasn't doing that before, nigga. When did you start doing that? Because you saw the collective. You saw their videos. Because you're one of their main social media stalkers. And so what they then do is try to get your social media taken down. They start putting curses on your social media. They start calling in favors. If they have any weight and power to call in favors, put you on some kind of blacklist, to shadow ban you. and then fucking copying everything you do on their platforms. Taking that inspiration and then not wanting you to do what you were inspired to do. This is what they do. Where did it go? This is the corrupt individuals and enterprises, their bread and butter. It is their focal point, because if you can affect the sense of safety and security, if you can affect the living space, the foundation, then you can slow down the self-actualization, which is the remembering and your liberation from their bullshit. Because a part of the liberation from their bullshit is exposure to their toxic criminality. And that's what terrifies them possibly the most. Because as a sociopath, your reputation is everything, even though it is a fake one. It's everything. Being known as the pillar of, of a community. Being known as one of the greatest givers of a community. Being known as, somebody very helpful and, pious and all of those things. That's of importance, to have influence and the respect and the acclaim of people. So to have all of this come out is like the shattering and the end of existence for them. Because these are not individuals that are open to any true evolution of being. They're not open to change. They're not open to growth. They're not open to another possibility of non-toxic ways of being successful. They're not interested in being accountable and, course correcting and balancing out. And they're not interested in any of that. They're interested in keeping that leverage and that power and that control and that illusion and these secrets held on a vault. This is another reason why they zone in very heavy, hoping to get the collective seen as an invalid, as someone mentally unstable, as someone crazy, hopefully get them put away and all of these things, because if they can do that, then they don't have to worry about nobody ever believing anything, and they don't have to worry about nothing ever coming out, and then hopefully then eventually the targeted individuals, they just die. And then if their children, disabled, well, then they can just have them in a hospital, collect their check, have them drugged out, zombied out, suck the fucking life out of them, so that they can create their trashy shit off of the energy of the disabled person that they put in a catatonic state. And they're okay with that. And then they'll go to church with you and other people and sing praise and worship songs every Sunday. Every Wednesday. They will get here on social media and have their little spiritual businesses and practices and stores and brag about all of the successes and all of their knowledge and stuff and energy that they're getting and stealing off of disabled people. And they're okay with that. And in their disillusionment, actually think they divine with that kind of fucking conduct. They actually think they're benevolent in some way, shape, form, or fashion. Some of them, not all of them. But a lot of them actually are delusional and actually thinking that. It's like, bitch, ain't you siphoning disabled motherfuckers' energy for your creativity? Use a sick hoe, use a sick nigga. Ain't nothing benevolent about you. You're a thief and you're a fraud. You using your giftings and your talents, you're exploiting people. You're exploiting people who can't defend themselves, who've been compromised. You're full of shit. You're nasty, especially the ones that's doing sex shit, sex rituals and you know, sending fucking sex entities and shit. They're nasty. They're disgusting scum of the earth. They're scum of the universe in my book. Because these people's lives don't matter. These disabled people's lives don't matter. They just supposed to be somewhere sitting up, laid up on a bed, zombied out while you drain their life force energy for your creation, you retarded whore. You retarded nigga. You're entitled to that. If somebody were to siphon your kids today, you'd fold and fall on your knees and cry like a bitch. And you would feel some kind of way about it. That's these people, what they do. Their ignorance, their blindness, their disillusionment. They participate in this disgusting shit and then want people to see them as something divine. And then would be the first one having bitch fits when catastrophe happens to their children. And they got so many people's children's blood dripping in their whole fucking, whole goddamn being, blood. But feel some kind of way. When it's theirs that get harvested. Delusionment. Well, we can just do some protection on ours. Very well. That'll last, but for so long. Because when judgment is called by the divine ones, by the light ones, pertaining to that kind of violation, it's over. The clock is ticking. Eye for an eye. You don't get to take life, innocent life, divine, and then go do some protection spell and amulet. That's going to shit soon. How do you live a life of mayhem for your survival, your greed and well-being, and think that you and yours is going to have a life forever protected and in bliss, it will run out. I can certainly say, as it pertains to me and mine, it is. You don't rob me or my son and then try to do away with us like we some trash you dispose when you're finished with it. To do away with the evidence of your retardation, of your depravity. You can forget it. It's on. And trying to entrap folks like me and my son to be able to do all this weird children of the corn shit is coming with a hefty price for everybody involved. The judgment is final. And because these individuals continue to push back because they think they're badasses and they think that it's just a matter of getting enough practitioners and enough stalkers and enough weirdos and enough this and that, well, because of that, then it's just been amped up. And they brought it on themselves. They couldn't leave folks alone. It's just something these people just could not do. And this is what's going to be the greatest price they ever pay of their lifetime. Their greed, their envy, their jealousy, their narcissism, their bullying ways. Their entitlement, their lust for clout, power, and money is going to be the death of each of them. And that death is going to be a slow burn. Is going to shrinkle and do exactly as they have done to my son and me. It's going to be a slow one. It's going to follow them and eat at everything as soon as they're thinking they're winning. As soon as they think they have found happiness, as soon as they think they have found a new beginning, as soon as they think they hit the jackpot, it's going to continue to eat away. Betrayals, sickness, poverty, freak accidents, psychic attacks, exhaustion, foreclosures, unemployment, homelessness, loss of revenue, slow burn. Chaos and conflict in the home, uneasiness. They shall eat and live and reap everything. Being poisoned, feeling like somebody's always watching, having people stalking, having people stealing, having people being overly hostile and aggressive for no apparent reason. Having your children be mistreated for no reason, be targeted for trafficking. having spell work powerful enough to affect even the most powerful witch. It's possible, honey. Ain't nobody on the planet that can't be touched. And I'm talking entire covens, honey. Ain't no coven untouchable. And they're about to find this out. Sudden car accidents, sudden car problems. It's going to be a slow burn. The same way they have done the targeted individuals. They're not going to be able to enjoy anything. All the things that they take delight in is going to turn into a nightmare. They're not going to be able to enjoy fucking. They're not going to be able to enjoy, you know what I'm saying? Some of them going to end up impotent. They're not going to be able to enjoy food, their drinks, their drugs, their alcohol. They're not going to be able to get the high they're looking for. Some of them, or looks are going to go to shit because some of them, they heavily attack that on the collective because of their fucking insecurity. So since they did, guess what? That's their investment. So their vanity, then they're going to be affected in the same way. They're going to either get too skinny, they're going to get too fat, something's going to happen with their skin, something's going to happen with the shape of their body or their face, something is going to affect that they took so much vainglory as they clowned, humiliated the collective while they were doing spell work in order to have the collective in a certain way because they were jealous. They're going to experience friendlessness all of a sudden, you know, because these are people who, they, like I said, they can't make a decision without a group text. These are people who can't really be alone. They claim they can, but they can't. So they'll experience misunderstandings. They're going to experience friendlessness. They're going to experience feeling like no one gets them. They're going to experience feeling like everybody in the world is against them. Yep, that's their lot because that's what they did. They're going to get cheated on. They're going to get stolen from. They're going to get used and publicly humiliated. These cults and covens are going to turn on each other. They're going to tell the secrets on each other and about each other, the violations towards each other and other people. Yes, they are. Since they wanted to team up, it's going to be war, chaos in their own camp. Since they wanted to gang up on one person and their child, they're going to experience that. Since they were trying to plot tragedy, these people are going to experience tragedy. Since they've created tragedy after tragedy for the collective, they're going to eat and swallow tragedy. None of these people have made anything right And in fact, all they do with their time, money, energy, and resources is still attempt to make things worse. And once again, the targeted populations would have been, you know what's sad is they would have been just fine with meager means if people would have just left them alone, let them be to themselves, and stop trying to affect them. They actually would have, even though it was unjust and unfair and people, intercepted what was divinely theirs, homes, gifts, and properties, they would have been okay. Like, just leave me alone and stop trying to stop me from being able to create myself. You don't like me. You don't want me to have shit. You don't want me to have what's mine. You feel you deserve this house. You feel you deserve that money. You worrying about if I find out that if he my daddy, then I'm going to want a part of his money and estates and all of that. Well, look, can't miss what you never had. And since I know that I am what I am, I know that I have the power to co-create from nothing. If people don't want to do right, as best they could leave motherfuckers alone. That's the bare minimum. Stop coming in here when I come on social media and doing spell work on my son. Stop coming in here sending negative energy towards me or my son every time I do a video, because you're bringing hell to yourself every single time. To you and your children. Stop trying to siphon my light through my videos, through my lives, in general, through my pain, through trauma, through agony, through misery, whatever it is you all do. But you can't. You've never been able to. And this is why it has gone on this long. And for this reason, I have full intention on exposing more and more. Because you people, you don't learn. People give you an inch, you take a yard. You don't learn, you don't grow. You don't evolve. For this reason, I have full intention on telling it all. Every minute detail. Because if you're going to torture the targeted population, no matter what we do and say, then we might as well expose all of you. And that's what we'll do.